little warm puppies.
I do not hate little warm puppies.
Okay.
It's your job to pass the statutes. It's your job to choose policy. And then it's my job to interpret those laws and apply them to facts of particular cases. And they don't always lead me to results that I would reach if I were, queen of the world and I could say, you win, you lose, or this is how I want it to be, because I just don't have the power by fiat to impose my policy preferences or choose the result I prefer. You have asked me a series of questions that are completely uncontroversial, like whether COVID-19 is infectious, whether smoking causes cancer, and then trying to analogize that to eliciting an opinion on me that is a very contentious opinion from me. I will not do that. I will not express a view on a matter of public policy, especially one that is politically controversial, because that's inconsistent with the judicial role, as I have explained.
Thank you, Judge Barrett.
I'm used to being in a group of 9, my family. Nothing is more important to me, and I'm very proud to have them behind me. After we had our first daughter, Emma, we thought, well, why wait? So I was expecting Tess when we went and got Vivian. So she and Tess function, we call them our fraternal twins. They're in the same grade. And it really has enriched our family immeasurably. And once we had adopted Vivian, at that point, then we made the decision that we definitely wanted to adopt again. And so several years later, John Peter entered our family. The word abortion does not appear in the U.S. Constitution.
That is correct.
I believe in the power of prayer, and it has been uplifting to hear that so many people are praying for me. I look forward to answering the committee's questions over the coming days. And if I am fortunate enough to be confirmed, I pledge to faithfully and impartially discharge my duties to the American people as an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. Thank you.
Most of us have multiple notebooks and notes and books and things like that in front of us. Can you hold up what you've been referring to in answering our questions? Is there anything on it?
That letterhead that says United States Senate.
That's impressive.
There you go.
Well, hello, this is Janet Morena, Executive Director of Priests for Life. I hope you enjoyed that little collage of just some of the highlights of Amy Coney Barrett. I mean, did you not think she did a splendid job during her time testifying? And of course, we have to all applaud. Mission accomplished, mission accomplished. She's been voted and confirmed, took her oath. I mean, this is amazing. Such a blessing. I mean, I've been working, as you know, in the pro-life movement with Father Pavone for, over 30 years together. And to get another Supreme Court justice that appreciates the Constitution and is so pro-life, pro-woman, pro-family. And by the way, she lives her life. Well, joining me today on the program, we're going to have a great program, and we want you to ask questions. We want to take your questions. Is a dear friend of mine and Father Pavone's. His name is Robert Muise. He's an attorney, and he's also the general counsel here at Priests for Life. And of course, he's the founder and senior lawyer for the American Freedom Law Center based in Michigan. And Robert, I can say Robert, right? Because we're friends.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Muise, welcome to our program.
Hey, it's great to be with you. Thank you.
And of course, I have to throw out that you and Amy Coney Barrett went to Notre Dame Law School together. And hey, guess what? To our viewers, she beat Robert in the order of graduates. She was top in their class, and Robert came in number 2, right? Tell us, how does it feel to come in second to Amy?
I'm definitely second to Justice Amy Coney Barrett. That last little clip said, boy, you're impressive. She is impressive. Let me tell you, I couldn't think of a better choice for someone to the U.S. Supreme Court. In fact, she would have been my choice even before Justice Kavanaugh. But she's incredibly impressive, incredibly intelligent. Everything that you've seen and witnessed through these hearings and through all this other public statements and testimony is the woman that I knew at law school. I mean, she is that good. She's that impressive. We were classmates together, as indicated. We served on law review together. I saw her practically every day for 3 years in law school, and she was tops in the class in every way, in terms of intellect, character, humility. What you're seeing is not an act at all. That is who she is, and I can't think of a better person to be on the U.S. Supreme Court. And the thing that's so remarkable is she's controversial because she wants to be a true, authentic judge, right? It's almost shocking to the conscience when you think about how, the liberals, their choice for judges, they want people to make policy that can't be passed through the democratic process or the legislative process. And she's vowed to not do that, right? And that's all we want is we want a court to be a court, not to be a super legislature. And unfortunately, that's what we've got through the years. And now, thanks to President Trump and the individuals that he's appointed to the Supreme Court, specifically Justice Coney Barrett, that we're finally, I think, going to have a court that's going to know its place and do what the Supreme Court is supposed to do. And then you listen to like the Chuck Schumers of the world and these others making these incredible threats, because of it. It's lunacy. It's absolutely lunacy. It really is. But she was a home run for President Trump, and I couldn't be happier for her, and quite frankly, I couldn't be happier for the country, because she's exactly what we need in the Supreme Court.
Okay, so now during the hearings, I'm sure you were watching, the Democrats put on quite a show, honing in on, just November 10th, a case is going to go before the Supreme Court, and if you're confirmed, you're going to hear that case. And they were going on and on about the Affordable Care Act. You're going to take away health insurance, pre-existing conditions. And of course, the Democrats are going overboard about this pre-existing conditions. They brought in all kinds of poster pictures of people and people to give testimony on that second day, sad cases, one and all. Can you just tell our viewers exactly what is being heard by the Supreme Court on November 10th? Can you just explain it to us?
Sure.
Us mere mortals who don't understand legal.
I'll try to put it in perhaps terms that could be understood. It's not surprising with somebody once mentioned to me before that if you watch C-SPAN and if you see somebody up there talking that's showing pictures of children and people who are starving, and then it's a Democrats and data and things that are grounded in truth, and you're likely seeing a Republican talk. And that's they were trying to find their Kavanaugh moment for Justice Amy Coney Barrett, and they had absolutely nothing, because she was such an impressive candidate that they had to use this healthcare issue as somehow an issue as to why she shouldn't go on the bench. Now, bear in mind, there's going to be 9 justices hearing this, not just one. In this case, it arises out of Texas, right? And your viewers probably recall, back in, I think it was 2010, when the Obama challenges to the Obamacare made it up to the U.S. Supreme Court. In fact, we, the American Freedom Law Center, had one of the principal challenges that went up to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit. I argued that challenge to the Obamacare, it's particularly the individual mandate, which is central focus on this lawsuit. Argued it against the Solicitor General. Unfortunately, it came out 2-1, and our case, I think, was right behind this one, going up to the one that went to the Supreme Court in 2010. So I'm familiar with the legal arguments that have been going on with all this, and with the principal challenge was that, look, the whole Obamacare was required this individual mandate, right? The federal government was mandating people to have to purchase insurance. Never in our history of our Constitution has the federal government been able to impose such a mandate. And obviously it was a very divisive decision. Chief Justice Roberts is the one that cast, unfortunately, the deciding vote, and he did so in a way that I think was just plainly wrong. He held that the individual mandate, because it came with it a tax penalty, it was actually a penalty. It wasn't a tax, right? It wasn't like you purchase something and you pay an excise tax or a sales tax. The government was saying, we are going to punish you by way of a tax if you don't take some affirmative action, which is contrary to anything that we've ever done under the Constitution. Right. But Robert said, well, they didn't have power under the Commerce Clause, which is typically where the federal government gets its broad powers, right? Just little constitutional law 101, the federal government is a government of limited and enumerated powers. If you can't find the power in the Constitution, they don't have it. It belongs to the states. And the argument was, look, they don't have any power in the Commerce Clause to mandate individuals to purchase insurance or suffer a penalty. And so what Chief Justice Roberts said is, well, it's not really a penalty, it's a tax. And so Congress had the power to enact this legislation under its taxing power. And so they viewed it as a tax. And so the individual mandate, which really, one of the main questions that's going to come up at the Supreme Court is if this mandate is held unconstitutional, is it severable? Meaning, can you just take this mandate out of this law, which has so many components to it, and sever it off, and so that the law continues? Or is it unseverable, meaning the whole thing has to come down if the individual mandate is found unconstitutional?
Okay,
so this issue was already resolved by the Supreme Court, but why it's come up again? And Texas brought this lawsuit. They keep saying, Trump is bringing the lawsuit. Trump's not. The lawsuit was brought by multiple states. The Department of Justice, though, said, look, we can't defend this because it's unconstitutional. And other states have come in, California the lead, to defend the statute. It's really kind of an odd posture. But what ended up happening is after President Trump signed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, his primary tax legislation. Part of that legislation was they removed the tax of the individual mandate. So now you no longer have the tax associated with the mandate. So it no longer serves as the basis for Congress to enact an individual mandate. The question then becomes, is this mandate still constitutional? And if the mandate is not constitutional, then the follow-on question, which is one of the principal questions, is that individual mandate severable from the overall Obamacare? If it's not severable, meaning did Congress intend this legislation to continue even if this portion of it was held unconstitutional? If it's not severable, then the entire Obamacare is unconstitutional and it's null and void as a violation of the supreme law of the land, of the Constitution. Now they could find, so there's multiple things that the court could decide. One of the issues coming up is whether or not there's even standing to bring this action on behalf of the state. So the court could say, look, there's no standing and they don't get to the merits and the case is over. The court could get to the merits and find that the individual mandate is unconstitutional and then find it severable. So the remainder of Obamacare stays alive and the individual mandate is held unconstitutional. The court could end up saying that the individual mandate's unconstitutional and it's not severable. So all of Obamacare is held unconstitutional. So there's multiple things that could happen. And then part of this also is how far does the remedy go, right? So if they find that it's not severable, if it's unconstitutional, it's not severable. What does that mean? Does that mean, again, the whole Obamacare is unconstitutional or certain parts of it, like the coverage for pre-existing conditions, some of these other subsidies, which rely on the tax to fund? So this thing is a very, very complicated web. But remember, at the end of the day, it's not like a Supreme Court decision then decides for all the rest of time, for eternity, that nobody has insurance and that pre-existing conditions can never be covered. It has nothing to do with it. It's just a question of this Obamacare legislation, which, by the way, is horrendous. I don't know about you, but I know I have 12 kids. When Obamacare went into effect, I'm paying more for my health insurance than I am for the mortgage on my house. My premiums were supposed to go down, right? I forget what he said, like $2,500.
They went up.
To keep your health care plan, all this other nonsense. It didn't happen. Quite frankly, this thing ought to be discarded, and let's start fresh and have a health care plan, which President Trump intends to put in place, that protects pre-existing conditions, right? That's the fear mongering of the liberals, is they always say all these people with pre-existing conditions are going to be left out on the street. No, they're not. And nobody's denied health care here in the United States as well. You can go to emergency rooms. There's Medicaid for people who can't afford health insurance. It's not like all of a sudden the world is going to collapse and all of a sudden nobody can ever get medical care. That's just not even the case. And so there's a lot of hyperbole that's going on about what's going to happen with this with the Affordable Care Act. Quite frankly, I hope the whole thing gets trashed and we can start again. We can start using private markets and using our capital market system to provide for health insurance programs that are that are helpful for for everybody. The left, they want socialized medicine. They've said it. They want Medicaid for all. You know what that's going to mean for all you people who are watching who have insurance through your employers, which is the vast majority? Gone.
It'll be gone, and then our taxes are going to go way up. So someone's going to have to pay for it.
If you're so concerned about losing insurance, my concern wouldn't be with what the Supreme Court's going to do on November 10th, and the decision won't come out probably till June anyways. That's just when oral argument is. My concern isn't what the Supreme Court's going to do. My concern is what are the liberals going to do if they end up gaining power? That's the more critical question.
But see, Robin, you just
the healthcare issue.
But wait, you just said something very important. Okay, this case is being heard November 10th, right?
Yeah.
And the Democrats are making it sound like, by November 11th, everything, the Supreme Court, if they decide and Amy against Affordable Care, everything's going to be taken away. It won't be taken away. They take months and months and months after the oral arguments, right? Till we get the results. It's not till I think it starts in late spring when the Supreme Court begins to give out their decisions, right?
Yes,
so,
and the more contentious ones, which this certainly will be, usually they wait till June.
They're June usually.
And the other thing to bear in mind is one of the things they could say is they could remand it back to the courts to fashion an appropriate remedy, which then could take another year or so, but beyond that. So this is not like come November 10th at midnight, everybody's going to lose their health insurance. It's just absurd to even suggest that. Right.
And so it should not have been an election issue. Number one, should not have been the way they're still blowing it up, by the way. Still.
Now healthcare should be, but not this decision, not this case before the U.S. Supreme Court. Healthcare certainly is, but not this case. This case is not a political issue. It's a question of fundamental constitutional rights and what the power of the government is under the U.S. Constitution. That's what this case is about.
Yeah. Unbelievable. So you know what we have to do, brothers and sisters, you're listening to this great explanation. You got to echo this. We got to amplify this out there because right now we only have a week left for this election. And the Democrats are just using this scare tactic to make people think that because they put in Amy and Chuck Schumer's making it sound like, they did that illegally, but it wasn't. It was 100%. If the shoe was on the other foot, he would have done the same darn thing. We know that. And we've got to really get it out there. And then also, too, I keep telling people that President Trump signed an executive order protecting pre-existing conditions. He came right out there. Whether it's Obamacare, this, that, or anything happens, pre-existing conditions will be protected. So the bottom line is with this whole case, Robert, is that it's not going to affect any of us at this juncture. Yeah. And the next president will be take the oath of office on January 20th, God willing, it will be President Trump. And then we'll find out maybe in June what happened to this whole Obamacare and Affordable Care Act.
And quite frankly, because healthcare is an important issue, there may be new legislation that will, on its own, repeal Obamacare and modify it in ways that that will make this decision actually be null and void. Let me just say, I want to say one thing because this is important. Some of your viewers who have been around for a few years, probably recall that when Hillary Clinton was first lady, she was put in charge of this task force to come up with a healthcare plan, healthcare program. It became very controversial, and President Clinton then put it aside. But what she ended up coming up with was what her healthcare plan was that she was using when she was running for president. And President Obama, boy, he criticized this idea of an individual mandate when he was campaigning against Hillary Clinton. He said, for example, he's like, so we're gonna solve the healthcare problem by forcing people to purchase healthcare. What so we're gonna solve the housing problem by forcing people to buy a house. I think that was his exact quote that he used. So he was so critical of this on the campaign trail, and then lo and behold, he's the one whose name is attached to this, the Obamacare. So you got to shake your head over this stuff. It's just, he understood the absurdity of the federal government forcing somebody to have to purchase something. And there you go. Right. So now it's Obamacare, and all of a sudden, Obama's shocked that even somebody would challenge the constitutionality of that when he said from the very beginning that it was unconstitutional.
Okay, now just to switch gears just a bit, as you know, there's cases that the Republicans are bringing up all over the country about different states trying to extend past November 3rd that they can count ballots past November 3rd. And I think it was just yesterday. I forget what state it was. I think, was it Wisconsin? They won.
Wisconsin, yes.
Yeah, Wisconsin. The case was won by the Republicans saying, oh, no. After November 3rd, the ballots will not be counted. You can't extend this dates that, if they're not postmarked by November 3rd, they're not going to count. They can't count them, correct? So now in Pennsylvania, I think they voted they could extend it 3 days. And now
well, these things get very confused. This whole mail-in ballot thing is going to be
so the question is,
disaster.
If the Supreme Court already told Wisconsin it can't extend the date, can they then tell Pennsylvania, like, listen, you guys just can't do this? I mean, in other words, as each one of these state arguments, are they going to each have to go to the Supreme Court, or is the Supreme Court just going to say, no states can extend it past November 3rd? Like, what can happen right now with all this controversy?
Boy, it's I don't know. It was a straight, easy answer, but there isn't, because the courts, and the problem with a lot of these things is that they're seeking emergency injunctions, right? And so this is on a very limited record. The ability to get an emergency injunction is very hard. It's not the same as arguing on the merits. They don't have full arguments. It's usually just a paper filing that the justices will vote on one way or the other. So it's hard to. But the problem with all of these, though, is that it's very timely, right? There's this doctrine called capable of repetition, but yet evading review, right? This because the election's coming up, and you can't wait for a year or a year and a half or 2 years to brief things and have a trial and all the evidence. So it's very limited. And so many of these things are governed by state law, because states basically, the Secretary of State's run a lot of the elections. Obviously, there's federal election law as well. It can get very complicated. And the Pennsylvania one, I know for certain the way it came out. The Wisconsin one I just came across. I don't do a lot of electioneering, election type law, so this stuff can make your head spin. But if you think the hanging chads was a big deal, how many election cycles ago, the amount of litigation that's going to come out of this election, because it was set up that way with these mail-in ballots, and bear in mind too, right? Because I hear it said by the Democrats and liberals saying, "Oh, we always did mail-in ballots, right? Absentee ballots." No, that's not the same thing. An absentee ballot, which I voted absentee when I served 13 years in the Marine Corps, and we used to have a voter officer go around. You'd have to show an ID. Everything have to be verified. There was a process in place to ensure that there wasn't any voter fraud. These mail-in ballots, there's nothing. Right. I mean, I know even at my house here in Michigan, several of my children have already grown up, married, moved off, and we're getting their ballots mailed to our house because of either voter records haven't been updated, and how many ballots have been sent out to people who've passed away.
Right.
And I see Republicans are trying to file lawsuits to get them to scrub election the voter list of people who are deceased, and they're running into problems with that. And there's the whole thing too with the ID. It kind of cracks me up. It's like the Democrats will do everything they can to ensure that there are measures in place for voter fraud, right? They challenge anytime you have to show an ID. These mail-in ballots, nobody has to show an ID. You don't have to do anything. You just vote, mail it in, and it's going to wind up somewhere. You could, it's the old with Chicago politics, vote early and vote often, right? That's
right.
What this whole mail-in ballot thing is becoming. And we even know, I think it was out in Minnesota, you have people going out and harvesting these ballots, collecting them up so they can mail them. And it was, Democrats, someone associated with the Democrat Party that was doing this. The amount of fraud that is possible with this is.
Well, Robert, you just said that your grown married children who no longer live in your household were sent ballots to your home. Now, I know you're an honest man and you're not going to fill them out.
Of course.
But let's say the same thing happened to another person who is not so honest and they have an agenda. Well, they could open up all those ballots and fill them out for these kids that have married and left and live elsewhere and mail them in, and they're going to count them, right?
Yeah, no, they
this
could
is
easily do
huge
that.
voter fraud.
And it's voter fraud, right? But who's going to prosecute that? Who's going to find that? My goodness, it's going to be so. I mean, it's just not going to even be possible to. You might get a case here or there to do it, but there's just so much. And it's always, and I see this time and time again with liberals, the ends always justify the means, right? They can justify in their minds, well, I got to get rid of this horrible president, so a little voter fraud
Anything goes,
at the end of the day, right? I mean, these are the same people who abort living children, right? You want to kill an unborn child. To think that voter fraud is beyond the beyond the realm. Come on.
That's right. They want to kill children till birth, and you're worrying about voter fraud. Yeah. Well, listen, Robert, we're about getting near the end of our time here. So I just could you tell people if they want to get in touch with your law firm there, because I know you do defend a lot of pro-life people around the country, including helping Priests for Life. So what's the best website for them to go to check out your work?
It's AmericanFreedomLawCenter.org.
Perfect. Well, Father Pavone told me to say to you, we want to know if you could come back next week on the program, maybe on Monday, because we think with all this hubbub going on about the voter fraud and everything else, people are going to have questions about, a couple that we had a question just now. We can't get to it, but maybe we can do this on Monday if you're available. They want to know how can you change your vote, how to protect my ballot. There's like these questions are flying in right now. So
let me just one thing. I mean, I'm voting in person on November 3rd because I know here where we set up, we have the voter machine. You fill out the ballot, you put it into the machine automatically counts it once it goes in, and that is in my view, that's the most secured way of doing it. Because even if you mail it in, you don't know if you have some county clerk or somebody who's not very scrupulous. Who might look at who this ballot's for and toss it in the trash. So I'm voting in person, and I'm going to do it that way to make sure that my machine counts my vote.
You're in a key state, Michigan, key for the president, key for the Senate. You go.
I'll be there. So will all my children and everybody else. So
line them all up.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you for your time, and we'll send you an email if you can come back next week during this contentious election. We'd love to have you back. Okay, so thanks for joining us. Okay,
right. Thank you very much. God bless.
Okay, well, brothers and sisters, I just want to remind you before you go, like Robin is saying, we have to protect our ballot. We have to get out and vote. I know the lines are long, so you're going to have to plan. If there's early voting, please get out there and go in person, vote early. You might have to take a day off from work to do it. Nothing is more worth it than this right now. Actually, Father Pavone and I, we're going to get up extra early tomorrow. We're going to go down for early voting here in Florida, right near our office, and we're going to get there before they open. We're going to get online, and we're going to do it. So I hope you do too. Please don't leave it to the last minute. And if you have, like I had an absentee ballot, but you know what? I'm going to bring it down there and do it in person. There's just too much going on right now. There's so much at stake. And once you vote, then your job is to help others, like-minded people, get out and vote. Go to our website, prolifevote.com, for last-minute information. And finally, if you didn't get our comparison pieces, probably about tomorrow is the last day to get the comparison guide out to you in time to distribute this weekend. I'll show it to you one more time. It compares the two parties. Go to prolifeproducts.org. And finally, on Election Day, we're all going to wear our T-shirts, also available at prolifeproducts.org. Pray for 45. Pray for President Trump. That's what we have to do, too, with this election. It's like they say, work and pray. And in Latin, it's ora et labora. Let's all do that together. This is Janet Marana, Executive Director of Priests for Life. Thanks for joining us on this program. God bless.